What's the worst thing your ex did to you? She got married while we were together. I found out like 6 months later. Not sure what her plan was, but TBH, even at the time I found it both funny and haha funny. Abandoned me and our 1-year-old to go be druggy white trash. Worked out okay for me and the kiddo in the end. No idea if the ex is even alive, nor do I care. Several months after breaking up with me and completely breaking my heart, my ex heard I was seeing someone new. I was really into this new girl, unlike anyone I'd met before. My ex started calling me, talking about getting back together. Silly me, still being in love with my ex. Told the new girl I had to try it again with my ex. I'd never hurt someone before, and her disappointment was hard to witness, knowing I caused it. After breaking it off with her, I tried contacting my ex. Never heard from either of them again. Came home from work one day and everything in the house was gone. She took my clothes, all the light bulbs and the partial roll of toilet paper, so I couldn't even take a shit. Screwed her MMA fighter on my birthday. While we were at the club having a good time, she slipped out, and he slipped in. She made sure the breakup was as nasty as possible. First she tried to get me jumped by telling lies. They showed up to my house, because she gave them my address. 4 of them. I walked out with a shotgun, and they kicked rocks. I was very lucky to be armed. Luckily I was smart, because she tried to maximum out my credit cards, and clean out my bank. But I took her off of everything and changed everything. But still, her intent was to ruin my life. She even tried to forge my signature for a general power of attorney to do God knows what with. She spray painted and vandalized some of my property right in front of me. I wanted to beat her butt, but as a man, I already know how that story ends. So I had to stand there and take it. She showed up to my job, retail at the time, and made a huge scene. Not even with me, but another employee, because she wanted to stir the pot and get me fired. I caught her before she could do it, but she tried to pour salt in my gas tank and ruin my car. I had changed my number and filed a restraining order because she called me, and I'm not exaggerating here, 30 to 40 times a day. She made threats to my mother and harassed my father and other family members. This all happened in the span of 2 weeks while she was preparing to move back to her home state, Vermont. I'm happy to report that she has since died horrifically and violently. You can call me sick, but I was extremely happy when I heard she burned to death in a car accident in 2012, and she deserved it. Driving drunk. She was a monster, and I hope she suffered. I'll never forgive her, and I'm glad she's dead. Some quick backstory is needed. We were all friends well before, and he was really close with my family. His dad was gone growing up, so over the years he ended up developing a father-son type relationship with my dad. His mom actually thanked my parents for that, since it was the first time she'd seen him open up to someone in that role in a healthy way. Anyways, we ended up hooking up one night, and decided we were interested in more. Wanted to take things slower though, and not tell our families for a while, so they didn't get their hopes up. After 5 months of continuing to explore our feelings and date, it's the holidays. Things are still going well. He came and surprised my parents by showing up for dinner, which they were super happy about since they hadn't seen him in a while. My mom asks if he's seeing anyone etc, and he goes, "Actually, yeah, it's going really well." Here I am, stoked to know we're on the same page, until he starts describing someone else, definitely not me. Apparently they met about a month before, hit it off, and started seriously dating, even though we were still together, seeing each other regularly for dates/sex, and it had no clue there was even anything wrong. So yeah, that's how I found out I was being cheated on, in front of my entire family at Christmas dinner. Broke my neck, broke my back, beat me so bad the earth thought I'd been hit by a car, threw me off a roof, threatened to gut my cats and hang them from the ceiling while I was at work. I legged it one night and spent 6 months in a DV shelter 5 hours away, and now a bunch of petty fassabicas told him where I am, so I get to live in fear all over again. cheated on me while I was doing a hospital stay, then told me it was my fault for denying him sex during the hospital stay. He let my mom take him out for a nice lunch and then called me at the hospital right after to do it. Left me on Valentine's Day for a literal homeless man after maximuming out 2 of my credit cards. Her parents then moved the homeless man and her back into their house, so I guess he's no longer homeless. Told me that he was doing a huge favor by putting up with me. Nobody else would want me, and that I better learn to behave. Isolated me from family and friends, with a strong interest in keeping me away from my twin brother. He'd already figured out that X was an asshole, reminded me constantly that I was a selfish, childish loser and he could leave at any time. Always seemed to need money whenever I mentioned having savings. Finally, I saved money without telling him. GTFO. Grew up, I was in my late teens/early 20s when this but pursued us around, and went to therapy. Now I'm happily married to the best husband ever. My ex-fiancé jumped out of his chair over dinner at a quiet, nice little restaurant and began a furious rage against me, any and all profanity vigorously included, which lasted a solid 5 to 7 minutes until the police had to escort him out. We had already planned to separate, and I was politely trying to offer back my engagement ring because it had belonged to his grandmother. I then had to follow along and bail him out of jail. Before the breakup, cheat on me with guys before and after we got married. I'm female and my ex is male. After a breakup, different ex physically attacked me in a bank parking lot to the point where the bank employees called the cops. We were in a long distance relationship, both of us being from different countries, different nationalities. It lasted for about 3 years. He then asked me to marry him, which meant it was expected of me to give up my life, to move to his country. Loving him as much as I did, there was no hesitation on my part. I was young, the last year of our relationship. He went through some hardships, which resulted in him not wanting to be involved in any of the planning anymore. Meaning any visits before I were to move, any documentation. He didn't have anything planned, anything organized. Nothing was ready for when that day would come. He lost interest. He was angry. He changed. He was abusive. He was manipulative. He wanted me one day, despised me the next, but still wanted me to marry him and schedule the move. It would have only happened if I had done everything, and I mean everything. There were heaps of red flags. Fortunately, I did understand his behavior when he suffered the loss he did. I was patient and compassionate, but I like to think that I am good at spotting some bull poop and something was just not right. I did end up breaking it off for those reasons. I wished him well. He was far from ready, and he needed time for his pain to ease, whether it took months or years. It has been 3 years since that day, and only late last year was I informed by a friend, with hundreds of threads, messages and photos on various social media accounts that I never knew of or could have access to, that he was indeed cheating on me the whole duration of our relationship, with multiple women. For my 18th birthday, my mum paid for a trip for my boyfriend and I to go on together in a city that's over an hour plane flight away. It was planned for a couple of months maybe, and a few weeks before my birthday he admitted to not feeling much in the relationship, which is understandable. That happens. However, we went on the trip together anyway because we had a break for a week and I thought things were fine. But on the second last day he brought the issue up again for no particular reason. I was practically begging him to not break up with me and bawling my eyes out in the hotel room. It felt like I was speed running over and over through the stages of grief, minus the acceptance part. I ended up leaving to walk around the city by myself because I was pretty ducking distraught. To top it off, in the end our flight got cancelled the next day, on the last ducking day, due to a dust storm. I spent 45 minutes trying to get a new flight due to terrible reception because we decided to go to the top of an extremely tall skyscraper, paying $70 to get into their sky view and staying for under 20 minutes as we had to leave to get reception. After I had sorted it and told him our flights would be 2 days later, he was visibly angry and made a snarky remark. It wasn't aimed at me, and his feelings were warranted at the situation just as mine were. But I wanted to ducking scream at him. It just felt like that was the straw that almost broke the camel's back due to his other actions. It's not a situation that makes me angry anymore when I look back on it. But despite the more enjoyable parts of that trip for the first 3 days, overall I still look at the whole trip as one of my worst memories and just a completely wasteful disappointment. All the worst stuff she did after she was already my ex. We were together for about a year when we were 18 to 19 years old. It wasn't a healthy relationship to begin with, but it ended when she cheated on me and left me for the guy she cheated with. Not a great thing to do, but not exactly uncommon, I guess. She almost immediately also cheated on that guy, then moved away. A few months later she moved back and wanted to make amends with me as just friends. All things considered, she and I did have great chemistry when we hung out, so I agreed to forgive and forget, because we legitimately had fun together. A few years down the road, she cheated on a new boyfriend with me. I should not have let this happen, but I did. She was still attracted me to her, so we would have little flings every now and again, usually involving her teasing me with the idea of leaving him for me. Surprise, that never happened. When I tried to date, she would always discourage it. It started by telling me I can do better than girls I was just going out with. But when she knew that wouldn't work, she began telling me it would kill her to see me with someone else. Keep in mind, she was in her own committed relationship. Close bracket. Eventually we cooled back down. Her BF proposed, and she said yes. She asked me if I would come to her wedding and was sure to phrase the question in a way that would feel out if I was jealous that she was getting married. I asked if I could bring a date, and her actual response was, "Would you really do that to me?" I ended up not going to the wedding because we had a falling out when she couldn't meet my GF at 1 AM after she had been drinking. Her marriage lasted 3 months. She left him for a coworker she cheated with. She once had us leave for a flight to LA about 45 minutes before it took off. A flight that I made while she hopped on another. I had to wait for hours in the hotel lobby because the room was in her name. Then, she took a 9 AM flight, which she was sure we'd be on time for, OFC, from LA to SF to see a guy she was just friends with while I was stranded there for 12 hours. She swore up and down that nothing happened, but now she lives with him in SF. I told my emotionally abusive husband that I was leaving him. He was surprisingly cool about it, and even offered to drive me to my friend's house to pick up boxes. He nearly killed both of us and our daughter on the drive there out of anger, driving erratically, speeding at 100 miles per hour in our quiet neighborhood, and threatening to crash on purpose. Eventually he stopped, and I was able to grab my kid and literally run. But I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone and I didn't know our neighbors. So we had to walk a mile until I got to a business and convinced them to let me call the police. He got his coworker, 10 years his senior, pregnant, and she was keeping it. We were young and he was really scared, and I was the first person he told. It was my first relationship, so I had no frame of reference, and he really somehow made me take pity on him. I stayed with him, only for him get another different coworker pregnant 6 months later. She also wanted to keep the baby. I felt like I was in the middle of an episode of Maury Povich. I'm honored to say I'm not with that loser anymore. She claimed she had custody possession of the children in order to collect more welfare, which meant that they came after me for child support. Even though I had the kids, I had just changed jobs and went from over 110k a year to about 26k a year because of the schedule you need to keep with 3 young kids. So they garnished my wages so severely I often got 2-digit paychecks. Then they garnished the children's college savings account as they had my SSN attached to them. Child support investigator knew I had the kids, but with no court order there was nothing he could do. He had a mental breakdown and quit. She also didn't pay her electric bill, which was still in my name, so they turned the power off at both homes. The one I left her and the rental I was in. Ended up going an entire 12 months with no electricity. That year of indoor camping with them is still one of their best memories. She was super controlling and manipulative. One day, she wanted me to leave in the middle of my work shift to go hiking with her. I said no. She showed up to my work to start a fight. I dumped her right there. 6 hours later, I get to our home to find police waiting for me. She had bashed herself up and called the cops to have me arrested for assault. The police weren't so inclined to do so when I told them I have 10 hours of CCTV footage of me sitting at work all the way up until 15 to 20 minutes before I got home. Next day, I go to the house with my family to retrieve my stuff, which was sprawled in the lawn, and her aunt waiting to serve me with a restraining order. 2 weeks later, my ex asked the judge to drop the order and she proceeded to sext me immediately after. I never looked back. She was physically and mentally abusive. I actually left just a month ago. She got super drunk and I asked for my phone charger, which made her mad for some reason. So I just tried to get it myself, which set her off more, and she tried to strangle me. I phoned my brother to come pick me up and stayed at his house for the last month. I got a hold of a friend and he met me at my house and we packed my poop and left. Came out as gay after we had been married for a year. After announcing it, began spending weekends with others, then announced to me that a promise had been made to the latest one ever to sleep with me again. This while we were still living together. Fun times. She will never admit it, but I know she plastered my Honda Grom with a bunch of different foods and toilet paper and stuff in the middle of the night. In the legal sense it would be speculative, but I caught it on Ring and could at least tell it was a woman that fit her size. She was one of the only women to know where I live, and only woman in recent history that I had relations with, and also the only person who knew where it would be parked in front of garage obscured by a pickup truck. And the fact that she was angry at me that same night and drinking with friends that were also in a man-hating mood. It really doesn't just seem like a coincidence that some other random woman would randomly choose my house and randomly come to my bike to do what was done. I once got back in touch with an old boyfriend after being away at uni for a year. He said he needed to pick up some stuff from a friend's when we were on the way back to my house. Said sure wasn't in a hurry. The friend turned out to be a heavily pregnant ex-girlfriend. They had a screaming match about how she couldn't keep her legs closed and the baby wasn't his. While I was awkwardly sat in the car, I couldn't leave because he drove and I didn't know where I was. When he got back in the car he took me home and tried to have sex with me as if it hadn't happened. Was surprised when I told him to leave. Cheated on me while I was in the military, denied it when a friend sent proof, and then fessed up to it and tried to spin it to be my fault. Tried turning me against my friends and family. When I broke up with them, they trapped me in their car for 5 hours, begging me not to go. Cheated on me, then again when I forgive her, and then again one final time. 3 times total. Twice with a guy with the same name as me, once with my best friend at the time. Thankfully this was nearly a decade ago, and I would let myself get treated like that now. Made me feel less than I am. Made me question my self-worth. First one, left me while my father was dying. Second one, fought for him for the relationship. I was there for him when he lost his father. Did my best to make him feel better, and then he said to me, move on, get over me, go give your energy to someone else, I didn't ask you to help me. Cheated on me daily. Kept telling me how worthless I am. Threw a phone at me. Just crazy stuff. Kissed someone on Thanksgiving when they said they were too busy to spend it with me. Then went to his ex's house. Then he broke up with me. Then dated/married another girl, not the one he kissed. Then acted like I didn't exist. She called me and said she wants a real boyfriend on my birthday. So that was lame. I mostly got over her. Then she called me like 2 years after that and was like, I regret breaking up with you. You were the only boyfriend I had that ever treated me right. Apostrophe. I was like, I thought I wasn't a real boyfriend. She stuttered a response, but I was nice after that, and we just caught up, and then I hung up. Then she dated and hooked up with one of my friends. She thought I'd be mad, but I was like, no, it's fine, please, I hope you marry him, so I don't have to worry about you trying to bring your crazy back to me ever again. Told me she'd call me back after Party of 5 ended. Last time we spoke, still joke around with my wife about my side chick who's supposed to get back to me any minute. First ex-wife emptied our shared account that she had never contributed to when I said I wanted a divorce. I was already paying for our apartment, her $800 MO uni costs, and food, and was eating ramen and mac and cheese only, but I refused to stop saving. I was educated about women that day. Second ex-wife cheated on me a week before I redeployed to Canas. Dude was a local drug dealer and had spent the majority of my deployment trying to work his way into her life while they were at cosmetology school. She let it happen and then refused to take ownership over her portion of the scenario. Third hasn't done anything yet. Bold of you to assume I ever had a GF in the first place. Stay pure. Stay virgin. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.